out there. We appreciate y'all making us a part of your Sunday morning here on this glorious April the 13th. Let's jump into some questions real quick, Jacob. Andy Monday in the Patreon group. And again, this is just a perk of being in the Patreon group. You can get your questions read on the air. Andy Monday says, hello, gents. I'm wondering who the Packers have lined up to announce their draft picks on stage. Have you heard? So many great choices. It's also been 20 years since Ted Thompson drafted Aaron Rodgers. Is crazy, man. I remember where I was when it happened. It seemed like I don't want to say yesterday, but it does not feel like 20 years ago. Any chance they'll show war room footage with audio of Thompson daring to consider Aaron? I'd love to hear that conversation. Even a specific tribute to Ted Thompson would be very appropriate. Man, that would be cool if they kind of unveiled some hidden footage, it was really cool hearing Bob Harlan tell his side of that story. And, Bob Harlan was the acting CEO at the time, the president of the Packers. And he hired Ted Thompson and put that whole thing together. Obviously, Ted and he went and got Mike McCarthy, brought him back to Green Bay and all that. But he said, from Bob Harlan's standpoint, Ted Thompson came to Bob Harlan in the draft room and said, hey, Ted, can I speak to you outside real quick? Like, yeah, sure. And they stepped out in the hallway and he said, this kid, Aaron Rodgers, this quarterback, he said, if he's on the board when we pick, he's the best on the board. I'm thinking about taking him, and I just want you to know there's going to be some backlash if we do that. And Bob Harlan said, it's your team, Ted. It's your team. I'll back you. So he knew what was going to happen as soon as he drafted Aaron Rodgers, that fans were just going to lose their absolute mind because they already had Brett Favre on the roster. And then here we are years later, same thing happening with Aaron and Jordan. But it was really cool hearing Bob Harlan's side of the story. And there's never been anything that's caused me to lose a little respect for Bob Harlan. It's always gone up. Any insight we've gotten on Bob Harlan, it's like, I like him even more now. I thought that was really cool how he handled that. But I remember where I was in Knoxville, Tennessee when it happened. Jacob, what did you think when they drafted Aaron Rodgers at the time? Do you remember it?
I do. I was at the Menominee Dunn County fishing game at the at a raffle that my grandfather works at every year. And I remember when it came through and I saw the pick on the TV. It was in the basement where we had this, like, it's old, basically like a DAV type building. And I was just like, I was shocked. I was the whole, you could hear a pin drop because it's, it's in middle Wisconsin, a bunch of old, guys that think that they're basically it's the epitome of, you got Brett Favre's going to take you to the Super Bowl or whatever the case was, it was that group of guys all sitting there being like, Rodgers, are you kidding me? What just happened? But man, I obviously was wrong, and I think that is something we should all remember when draft day comes and there's a name that pops up and we're like, oh, what the hell? It's just give it time, give it a little time. I don't know if you guys got to listen. Have you listened to Ryan's pod from this morning yet?
Not this morning, no.
Man, I tell you what, it almost lines up perfectly with kind of the intro here because he talks about he found some sort of article or some sort of guy that went in, used some sort of metric and found out who the worst drafting GMs were of the last 10 years, or team, I should say. And it would surprise all of you. I didn't get to hear the whole episode, but I made it to pick 12 where the Packers were. So the 12th. That's not too bad. And some of the teams that were gone before us were the Bengals, the Eagles, the Bills, all these teams that people say are so great and everything. And people love to hate on the Packers. And I think the Packer fans love to hate on the Packers. And I'd listen to that episode to get a little bit of humble pie and understand that we're not even in the back half of the league as far as drafting goes.
So we were 12th best at drafting. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Good stuff, man. Yeah, it's when you talk about the best player on the board, that's exactly what, how many times have we showed a mock draft on Twitter and somebody said, if they go corner in the first, you're crazy, or if they go tackle in the first, you're crazy. I'm going, y'all have no clue how this works, do you? Like, you can't dictate who's the best player available. You can't do that. Like, the board tells you who the best player available is. And if you've got a cluster and it's corner, edge, D tackle, whatever, and you've got a need, yeah, I'm with you. But to just pretend like, oh, there's no way that said position would be the best player available on the board is just crazy. And imagine if they had passed up on Aaron Rodgers. I firmly believe you would not have that Super Bowl in 2010. And the franchise could have slipped backwards. It could have. And I remember the night before the draft, Aaron was supposed to be the number one pick in the draft. Many people forgot that. And then once he doesn't go to the first spot, and then a couple teams don't need a quarterback, and he drops a little bit, then teams start going, I wonder why aren't anybody else taking him? Why did nobody trade up and get him? And now he starts to slide. So that could happen on draft night as well, man. That's why I'm not rolling out a quarterback this year, man. If pick 23 comes, and I'm going to get some flack for this, and I could give a rat's ass. If pick 23 comes and Brian Gutekunst's best quarterback in the draft falls to him at 23, he's going to run the card up there and take that quarterback. That's from the old school thinking of Ron Wolf too. They said they had a rule. They want to draft a quarterback every single year. Not with the first round pick necessarily, but like, hey, we need to add a quarterback that we like at whatever pick it is, that it makes sense because it's that valuable. It really is, man. So,
isn't there a saying too? It's like the best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Could you imagine if Jordan had been thrust into a starting spot his second year in the league? We probably would have ran him off the team by now. But like, this guy's a bust. And in many cases, quarterback busts are that exact situation where a quarterback is thrust into the spotlight right off the bat and he's not ready. That's the best thing to do is to let them sit. Now, they've got to be sitting behind somebody who knows what the heck they're doing, knows how to be a professional. And I know a portion of the fan base, the reasons we're not going to mention, love raking Aaron Rodgers over the coals. I posted a picture of Jordan Love and Brett Favre. You guys seen, I think I showed it yesterday.
Yeah.
Jordan Love and Brett Favre hanging out at a autograph signing. You would not believe how many people commented on there. Oh, Rodgers brainwashed him into the earbuds thing because he has wired earbuds. Who cares if he's got wired earbuds? I mean, are we to that point as a franchise that we're trying to pick people apart because they prefer wired earbuds over the cordless?
I don't think it's honestly that. It's more political nowadays.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what it is, and that's what I'm getting at. Is like, who cares what someone's political affiliation is? They play for your football team. You root for them as a football player. You want them to do good as a human being. It's mind-boggling to me. But anyway, and here's the thing. People go, oh, that doesn't matter, Clayton. Mario even talked about this. I'll tell you why it does matter. Because you've got players on this team. Jordan, imagine Jordan. If you think Jordan doesn't see those kind of tweets that get, 100, 200,000 views on Twitter, and then they go in the comments and see Packer fans saying that stupid stuff, how do you think that's going to get the best out of Jordan on the field? Or do you want a quarterback who's, by the way, he's completely embraced everything about Green Bay, Wisconsin. Like he is just like Aaron did, just like Brett did. They've embraced this whole, hey, I'm a Packer. And then you see him with Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon got to the point where he couldn't even hang out with the fans on Twitter because they would be an asses. So I don't know. That stuff kind of, again, man. And whatever your stance is on the wired earbud, I could care less, to be honest with you, man. If you think there's something dangerous about it, hey, more power to you. If you don't think it, more power to you. I just don't understand why we're trying to force each other to think like everybody. Let's all get in line and think the same thing, and we can't disagree on anything. And that stuff drives me nuts, man. So anyway, let's see what Prince says here real quick. Unpopular take. See if the Saints will give a top 100 pick for Willis, then draft the quarterback by the third round, maybe a Jalen Milroe. Boys, you know how I feel about Jalen Milroe.
I don't think Milroe's going to last till the third. He may not last the first round, dude. I really am starting to think that like Pittsburgh or maybe even the Saints or somebody, I just think that he's too good. He's too fast. He's too good for him to fall to the third. I don't see that happening, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you there. Rich Beck in the Patreon group says, I like that comparison of James Pierce Jr. to Brenton Cox Jr. Got me wondering what the scouting negatives were said about guys on the active roster. Did they turn out to be true? For example, what did they say about Watson and Dobbs? That would be a fascinating study, Rich. I wonder if I could go back. I probably have to pay for it, but if I could go back and let's say get Dane Brugler's Beast Guide from the last few years and kind of see if his scouting reports have held true, like, hey, because it's so hard to project these players from college to the pros. And that's essentially what you're trying to do with the draft. And that's why it's so hit or miss. And I think it's awesome you brought that up, Jacob, that we were 12th best at drafting because some fans think that we're bottom five, But yeah.
Well, and it's even more impressive because one of the metrics that they did look at was where you draft in typically in the grade. And Deadfish brought it up. He goes 12th best, picking around 25 each year. And it's like that's massive. That is a big point that people don't take into consideration, that we're usually picking late, almost early second is usually where we're picking. You know what I mean? As far as where the draft talent accumulates to. And that's what makes it more impressive in my eyes, that like Omar says right here, he says Goot's great at drafting after round 1, which I think he is on. I'd love to see the study that shows the hit rate after round 1. I'd bet my last dollar that Goody's pretty darn good.
Yeah, definitely, man. That would be a fascinating study there as well. Chuck Goodman says, wasn't Milroe invited to the draft green room? He was invited to the draft, yes. Now, again, it doesn't mean he's going to be a first-round pick, but it did perk my ears up. Like, I don't want to say it's rare they invite like second and third round picks, because there's been many times that later in the draft someone's there and they'll walk them up on stage just kind of out of the blue, like, oh, that's cool, they were there to draft. But I think there's a legit chance that Milroe could be there, man. There was some smoke to the Pittsburgh pick, like, hey, maybe he'll go to Pittsburgh, because for anyone who rolls their eyes at Milroe and thinks, he can't be a pro quarterback, they said the same thing about your Super Bowl winning Jalen Hurts, by the way. Milroe is Jalen Hurts, essentially. Jalen Hurts had a strong arm, right? Had a few accuracy issues underneath. He was in a system where it was kind of a 2-read system, and they created a 6-back offense around him, and that's exactly what someone would do with Jalen Milroe. A 6-back offense is essentially, typically when you're playing defense, when you hear that terminology, when you're playing defense, you've typically got 5 guys you've got to account for on the field from a target standpoint, right? It can be 4 wide receivers, 1 running back. It can be 3 wide receivers tied in and a running back. It always equals 5, right? Well, when the quarterback can run an RPR style offense, it now becomes a 6-back offense where you've got to now account for the quarterback. You can't just go, all right, if we take all of his routes away, he's just going to have to throw the ball away. That's a dude that can hit you with an RPR, a run pass run option type thing. So Prince in the chat, Hurts is Milroe, Milroe is Hurts, Lisa's out. Love it.
Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel.
Blake B asks, what if Tyler Warren or Loveland is the pick? I wouldn't know what to think or how to feel. Let me close this out real quick. Again, shout out to everybody with the Patreon questions. Appreciate you. The best way to support the show is scan the QR code in the upper right or go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. $3 get you everything on the site. It's just, it's more of an avenue for you guys to support the show as it is, in there to get excellent content, although we've gotten great feedback over there. So, all right. So here's the question. What if Tyler Warren or Loveland is the pick? I wouldn't know what to think or how to feel. Well, I know how I would feel about it. If Ty Warren fell to the Packers at 23, run the card. He's the 9th on our board. You're getting a top 10 talent in this draft at 23. Would not pass it up. That's me. And again, people criticized the Raiders last year because, remember, they took Michael Mayer, and then last year they turned around and took Brock Bowers. Well, now they're shopping Michael Mayer, right? And listen, Michael Mayer was one of the top tight ends coming out in the draft out of Notre Dame. It doesn't mean he's a bad football player, but Brock Bowers did historic stuff, right? So if you're telling me, hey, you can go get a Ty Warren, and let's say that turns into Brock Bowers this year, right? And you couple that with Tucker Kraft, boy, now you're really pressing into 12 personnel. And as we know, all these defenses are built to run nickel defenses, whether it's a 4-2-5, a 2-4-5, a 3-3-5 Cub, whatever it may be. They're geared towards stopping 11 personnel. And when you throw a 12-heavy offense at them, they struggle. They don't know exactly how they need to play that, because they're probably taking one of their best players off the field in a slot corner and replacing him with a lesser player because he has to play linebacker to stop the run. So I would be okay with Ty Warren. And then when it comes to Colston Loveland, boys, he's crept up on Ty Warren. He's now in the 11th spot on our big board. I'd be totally on board with that. Jacob, how would you feel about that at 23, man?
I wouldn't necessarily be thrilled, but I wouldn't be upset in any way. Because like you said, that just means that Goody thinks this guy is the truth, right? And that would mean that we have probably one of the best tight end rooms in the game if you got Kraft, Warren / Loveland, and then even Musgrave bringing it up the rear there. It doesn't feel like a position of need, but like you said, if it's the best player available, well, I don't feel like you can argue with that. And we always talk about injuries happen, and as you just mentioned, 12 personnel would be pretty freaking cool, especially just the way that this team has kind of evolved. I never thought we'd be a bruising running team again, like we were kind of last year. And if we are kind of shifting the fact that we want to have maybe more, some bigger offensive linemen, maybe more road grader types, and that we want to actually try to move some bodies in that trench area, who knows? Maybe adding another tight end is actually something that we could see. And I don't know, who would you consider the best blocker out of Warren and Loveland? Is that a difference maker?
We have to do a deep dive. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on him. In terms of the better player, though, even though Ty Warren is higher than Colston Loveland, it felt like Greg Cosell liked Colston Loveland better than Ty Warren. So keep that in mind. I want to say they were both used kind of flex, but on the surface, I think Ty Warren is the better blocker. I could be wrong there. I'm not a big Michigan guy. Let's see. Somebody said something here. Here we go. Blake B said, Loveland functions as a jumbo receiver in Michigan offense, but I don't know if it will calm the quote, we need a number one narrative. So it sounds like Loveland was probably used a little more as a receiver as opposed to Penn State and how they used Ty Warren. Doesn't mean Ty Warren wasn't flexed out. I'm sure he was as well. So
looks like Warren had a run block grade of 52.8. Take that with a grain of salt. And Mr. Colston Loveland had a run block grade of 53.3. So,
so probably about the same
exact.
Yeah. Got it. Good stuff. All right. We'll come back.